Welcome to Uncontained episode 20. I'm your host, Aaron Static Render, and for those of you who have been with me the whole way, all the way up to 20, thank you for listening. And it's a small milestone. We got plenty more Uncontained to come your way too, but thank you for listening. Those who are just joining me now, please feel free to go back and explore the earlier 19 episodes. And today we got a very interesting episode for you. It's a singer, songwriter, musician, music teacher. Her teaching of music is combined with yoga, combined with breathing exercises, and helps balance your brain so you are not as self-conscious about going up on stage and singing in front of people, because we've probably all had somebody tell us, unless we've got an amazing voice, shut up, quit singing, you're not good. Well, she helps you get over that. And a very interesting story. She also is living between two locations and has a new album out. Yes, well, an album that didn't get a proper release anyway, she said. So kind of trying to give it a rebirth and a proper release right here. Her new album's called Ricochet. This episode, number 20, is with musician, singer-songwriter, music teacher, Sharon Bousquet. And before we jump into the interview, I'm going to play you one of her tracks off her 2015 release, Ricochet, Baby Say So.
Steadfast and true, it was coming for me, and now it's coming for you too. Sudden and sweet smile over wine, we took as an answer, a beautiful sign of the things to come, the gifts of love, so welcome. When we touch, pulls us under a wave of love, so much, baby, yes, here I come, head over heels, out of dead on run, for the time that we share, touch and the go, for the love and the care, for the baby, oh baby, say so. Ooh, baby, say so. Well, I don't take it lightly, half in a daze, and this bite in my tongue leaves a lot on my plate. So here I go now, are you ready to rival the sun? 'Cause baby, yes, here I come, head over heels, at a dead on run, for the time that we share, the touch and the go, for the love and the care, for the baby, oh baby, say so.
Sharon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
All right, great. And for people who don't know or who are not familiar with you, could you just tell a little bit about yourself to familiarize my audience with you?
Sure. I'm a pretty much a lifelong artist, singer-songwriter, film composer. I teach a holistic singing and self-expression workshop called the Singing Body Seminar, and I've been teaching it, gosh, for about 20 years, I guess. As long as I've been doing music, I've been doing this seminar, and yeah, I just spend my days doing music.
Okay, great, great. So when you say holistic music, what do you mean by that?
Well, the class combines a little bit of yoga, some singing exercises, so what they call vocalies, bo 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 bo, that kind of thing, with breathing exercises, and something called educational kinesiology, which is movements that balance the hemispheres of your brain. And so, how that really works is these movements allow your brain to work better, and your fear centers, which for a lot of people, singing and standing up in front of a group is scary. It kind of
Yeah.
quiets that voice that tells you that you're an alto and you can't sing high, or if you sing high, your voice is going to crack, or you're going to embarrass yourself, or you're not a singer, you can't carry a tune in a bucket, and all those things that people tell themselves about their expression and their ability to sing. And it just sort of shuts that off and just puts you in a more settled place in yourself, so that that voice isn't telling you that you can't do something that you really want to do. And it just allows you to hear your natural voice, to get that out of the way so that you can actually sing and hear what you sound like.
Okay, great. That sounds very interesting. So are you saying like you anybody can sing like if one
I am
or
saying that.
is there still some limitations? Like even I could sing to
Yeah,
people?
right.
I'm normally told to shut up when I try to sing.
for most for most people who have that experience, they've had, whether it's a choir teacher or parents or siblings or friends or whoever, have kind of, they sort of shame, like we shame people if they don't have a particular type of voice when they start to sing, and then the voice doesn't get to develop. So of course there are some people that have a more developed, more pleasing voice when they first start to sing. But it's like if you don't use your voice in a certain way, and then it gets shut down when you're young, that it never gets to develop. So you could actually develop a unique and beautiful voice if you were given the opportunity. But in our culture, there's kind of a lot of shaming that goes on around self-expression if it's not a certain way.
Yeah, I have noticed that actually. Yeah, it's like I think even maybe when I was younger, I did hear that. Oh yeah, your singing voice sucks, but it didn't. Singing has never been my strong point. But getting up on stage is not,
Scary for you.
a big fear for me. I'll get up on stage and do weird voices and stuff like that. But get
Right.
me on the mic and tell me I'm singing in front of people and yeah, probably wouldn't be pretty. So maybe
Oh,
maybe I need to get my hemispheres balanced.
well, actually, you and I are kind of opposite one another in that I have great respect for anybody who does stand-up comedy. I can't even imagine, because you're either on and people are laughing, or you're sucking and or you're it's not working, and that's really all there is. There's really no in between, and I find that thought terrifying myself.
Yeah, yeah. The in between is just like a dead audience. Like it's like
Silence.
yeah, silence, and that hurts when you have a joke that you think is gonna land and get a big laugh and
It doesn't.
nothing.
Right.
Yeah, but you can have the same thing with music too.
Yeah.
Like, so how did you come across like your cocktail for balancing the hemispheres of the brain? How did you figure out that worked?
Well, that work actually wasn't mine. I didn't create it. I just teach it. It came from my teacher. His name's Edwin Coppard, and he and his wife Cheryl created what they called, way back when, the singing. Actually, his version was called Crystal Voice, and the Crystal Voice singing workshops were. I took the workshop, and then I loved it, and noticed an immediate result in my own voice, and so I took his teacher training course, the first one he ever did, here in Fairfield, actually, and he's from Canada. He lives in on Victoria, Vancouver Island. And so he came here and taught, and I took that class, and that was, 25 years ago. And I have been doing it ever since, either teaching it or using that work in my own, in my own career as a singer. So I do, I've done voiceover work, and I've done studio vocal work, and I taught, and I've, done many, many, many years of performing. So it's been a huge gift for me to have this program to use.
All right, so then you just had to get out and share it then. That makes sense if it's been had that big of an effect on your life. You mentioned that you're living in Fairfield, Iowa,
Yeah, that's
correct?
right.
Now, to a lot of people who are thinking of Iowa right now that are not from Iowa, they probably have no clue how unique Fairfield, Iowa is. I know there's like the Maharishi whirling dervishes too, isn't there? And like um, I don't know, a lot of meditation going on.
I haven't seen any whirling dervishes, but I wish, that would
Okay,
be awesome.
maybe that was an exaggeration, but
Well, actually, what the cool thing about Fairfield is it is in the southeastern part of the state of Iowa. So we're 45 minutes to an hour from um, the Missouri border, and the same from the Mississippi River. And so it's kind of relatively flat compared to certain parts of Iowa, like Northeast is really beautiful, and with between the river and the landscape that was created by the glaciers up there, it's a much more interesting landscape for most people. But I've actually come to really fall in love with Iowa, even this part of it here. I just go out and get lost in back roads and take photographs, and anybody who finds me on Facebook will see I post a lot of photos from this area, and it's very beautiful. But Fairfield itself is just odd because 1970s there was a university campus here that went kaput and was on the market for what at that time was a relatively low price, and it was picked up by the Transcendental Meditation movement and purchased as a campus for teaching what is called consciousness-based education. And so there's a university here that's been here since the 70s that is an accredited university that teaches. Their focus is they do a teaching program. They have an art program, and sustainable living has been really big, and computer programming and different programs that are offered here. With the basis of the program is all the students learn to meditate, and they all meditate together. And then each class is taught with that angle on things. So with a consciousness based focus on all different subjects as you study them. So it's a really interesting, actually very interesting place. And then it has a K to 12 school that my kids actually graduated from. So yeah, so it's an absolutely wonderful place. People from all over the world. It's very diverse. Conversations tend to go very deep very quickly. And there's an amazing singer-songwriter room, a listening room downtown called Cafe Paradiso that gets amazing talent from all over the world that comes through here and plays in this tiny little town of 9,000 people. So I feel really blessed. We have 5 different venues of different sizes, from the Stephen Sondheim Center for the Performing Arts to Cafe Paradiso to the Arbor Bar. Has all different kinds of alternative and indie music, mostly a younger crowd, 20s 20-something crowd there. And
okay.
yeah, I mean, there is a lot here. And then we have a beach. We actually have a little beach on the reservoir. There's sand, and you can go swimming and be out in the water. And it's a special little place.
Well, when you're doing transcendental meditation, can is that where you can do like the out of like body meditations, and you could like just put yourself on a beach anywhere,
That would be nice.
or
No, actually, I've never heard of that. That's not, TM is a mantra based meditation.
maybe it's not TM. I don't know. I was thinking, have you seen the movie Men That Stare at Goats?
No, but it sounds fascinating.
No, it was they were using meditation in the army, in the military, to try to control. It's based on a true story,
Actually, you know what? I
and
did see the trailer for that, and it did look really cool. I didn't see the movie though.
they believed like if they were trying to find people that could like stare at a goat and kill that goat with their mind,
Hmm.
and like try to figure
Weapons.
out what
Turn.
like what box, yeah, kind of in a way, and also be able to tell if somebody's lying by or know exactly what's going on. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, so my synopsis of the plot is a little rusty, but yeah, they had like a bunch of boxes, and you had to be able to get like tell what box was had the item you were looking for in. There were a few people they thought were gifted, and it was an interesting movie. I'd recommend it. I believe it has Jeff Bridges and Brad Pitt in it.
Okay, well, great. I'll check it out. It sounds interesting. It's the intent and focus of that movie's form of meditation is pretty much the opposite, though, of what's here. Because the idea here is, with most forms of meditation, I think, is to develop your a sense of peace, and so you want to be peaceful and happy and you know, expanded inside of yourself, and killing people with your mind is like basically the opposite.
You're not trying to kill goats in
No,
Fairfield.
absolutely not.
Actually, I think the purpose of that program, like the person who founded it, was supposed to be like a peaceful way to resolve conflict.
So not just weapons free murder, like just
Not just mind bullets.
gotcha.
It wasn't all sinister, but um. So speaking of movies, you actually have been licensing your music for films.
Yeah, I have been. I intend to do a lot more of that. As the years go on, touring gets a little bit harder as far as just the grueling aspect of it. And people think it's so romantic. Oh, you play music for a living, how nice. And you want to slap them upside the head when you realize that you're putting in 80 hours a week in this business and it's kicking your tail. So yeah, it's not for wusses. This business is not for wusses, and so it gets a little tiring on the body just physically to do the touring part. So I
Yeah.
really am looking forward to doing more and more licensing as time goes on.
So how'd you get into licensing music for film? How'd you find that avenue?
Well, I've been sort of interested in it. Look, I was living out in Santa Cruz, and a girlfriend and I drove down from Santa Cruz down to Idlewild. Have you ever heard of Idlewild? It's a really
I
cool.
have heard of it, but
It's a writers community that's out near Joshua Tree and the desert. And we went there. She had a family cabin out there, so we went there to hang out and just check out Los Angeles and the mountains there. And we met this guy at breakfast one morning, and he happened to be a filmmaker, just a beginning filmmaker and a musician. And we just hit it off. We sat over coffee and just talked for 2, 3 hours and kind of really got to know one another and just had a great connection. And so he and I stayed in touch when we left. And, like, I don't know, some years later, like, I don't know how many years later it was, 3, 4, 5 years later, I get a message from him saying, I have a film and my first feature, and I need some music in it. And I was thinking of you. So could you send me what you have now? And I just happened to be in the studio with my latest record, finishing up at that point. So I sent the album, and I sent the sans vocal version, the TV tracks that don't have any lead vocals on any vocals on them, basically instrumentals of all the songs. And he
okay.
used a lot of both of those things in the film. And that was the start, was working with Steven. So I've had actually put music in a couple of his films. And
And what film was that you got your start
the
in?
initial one is called Cosmic Radio. And if you remember an old show called Northern Exposure.
Yeah, yeah. It was Alaska or Canada, I don't
Right,
remember.
really quirky characters and based around a radio station up in Alaska, and
Yeah.
it's a cool old show, and it sort of had that kind of a vibe. It was similar. It was a radio station involved, and romantic interest, and then there was an added eco environmental storyline. There was a woman there who was put herself up in a tree, and she was part of this rainforest alliance or whatever, tree saving tree huggers you would call them probably, and she was up in this tree trying to save these old redwoods, and so that was one other storyline that was in it. So it kind of had a green storyline too, and so he used quite a bit of my music for it, and then the movie just kept getting buried, not getting released, and then they were going to turn it into a series on cable, and then it was coming out, and then it wasn't, and then I heard nothing for years, and so finally I ended up giving up on it, and now it turns out that it actually really is going to be a series, and so it's being turned into a series, and so we'll see what happens with that initial film, but I have music in three or four others, and I'm just to continue to submit music through some services and through other connections that I have here in Fairfield after having been here in music for a long time.
Do you mind sharing what those services are?
Yeah, well, I was actually just funny. We should talk about this because just tonight I was with a friend who's from Los Angeles, and we were talking about licensing, and I've done Taxi. And then the other ones that's really the only service I guess that I've actively put my money where my mouth is and used. And I've gotten quite a number of forwards this year on Taxi. I think if you're really good at looking at their listings and not just sending willy-nilly sending your music in, you need to really think about it being the right fit. And so I don't send, like in a year, I'll send maybe 19 or 20 or 25 songs in. I won't, and they have just thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of listings in a year that you can send your music into. So it's really about both having good product, having instrumental versions of everything that you do is my first, recommendation would be just
Okay.
anything that you do, make sure you get the sans vocal, without the vocal track, just the instrumental version of every song that you do. So whenever you record, make sure you get that from the sound engineer, from the producer, that you have those versions that you can use for licensing, because that will be helpful in the future, definitely. Because there's a lot of, if you think about it, most films are mostly talking, and if there's music, it's underneath of a speaking scene. And so if you have instrumental versions of your music, then that's all the more places that your music can be placed.
Yeah, because it could get distracting with lyrics and the dialogue from the show just become a mumbled mess, a
That's right.
jumbled
That's
mess.
right. And the focus clearly is keeping the storyline going. So your music is support. It's not the main thing.
Yeah. Okay, that's actually some really good advice on that too. So, do they have so you say check and see what they're looking for too as far as sound goes? Do they just have a description of what they want in the
Well,
track for
as
it
far as
or
Taxi goes, they're an A&R service, and so they have everything from major producer of multi Grammy winning female vocalist with a gymnastic voice needs pop hit that you would hear alongside these songs, and then they'll give you actually references of what songs to listen to that give you the feel or the taste that they're looking for. And then they immediately say, do not copy these songs, but this is giving you a
yeah.
feel so that people know that, okay, they're looking for something that has, is either edgy or is really poppy or is, a straight out love song or has a lot of vocal gymnastics or whatever. There are all these different factors as far as what people want and what they're looking for when they're recording. And so those kinds of things in there. And then they're looking for what are called tension cues, things where you're creating a mood with your music, and that'll be like a
Okay.
short for trailers or for the beginnings of films or just lots of different types of cues for films. Just there are so many different types of music that's needed for licensing. Anything you can imagine, really.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny with them sending you the tracks for like a little
For
sample and saying,
references,
"Do
yeah,
not copy these."
that's
They're
right.
like, "I want it to sound like this,
But
but I do not want to pay the big price to have to use this song in my movie."
yeah, and the other side of it as being, doing this is you realize that, especially with independent films, but maybe with everybody, they spend all of their money making the music making the film look amazing. They just want it to look like incredible, like a many million dollar film. And then you end up, by the way, we need music. And so they come to you and say, listen, we need music. But so there's always that getting paid on the back end part of things. That's what's nice about Taxi. If you're dealing with Taxi, a lot of the music libraries and music supervisors and producers, they're not asking you to do that. They're actually, there's money attached to each licensing opportunity that they claim.
Okay, so are you in on the back end as well, or is it just like up front?
It just varies really greatly. Like for instance, with some of the early films that I placed, and that wasn't through Taxi, but the early instrumentals and songs that I placed in films, I'm getting paid on the back end of those. So I'm still waiting to see a dime from that experience. And in some cases, a long time later, like 8 years later in one case. So it feels like my experience is that the film industry is just painfully slow at getting you your money. But I do know that some of the listings that are there they're asking for something immediately. This artist is in the studio now and they need this kind of song now, and you have till noon tomorrow and I need the biggest hit that's ever been written. And so those kinds of things can pay out fast. So
Okay.
if you have a studio and you're a really good musician and you can write to those listings, your numbers go up. The opportunities for you go up. What I'm doing is I have a back catalog, both various styles and both as songs and as instrumental versions of those songs. And so those are the things that I'm working with, is placing stuff that I've already written. Because it's already written, I might as well, actually make some money from it.
Yeah, might as well. It's otherwise it just sits there,
That's
right?
right.
And now people can hear it too, even if they
Yeah,
don't know what it is right away.
that's right.
So you have um sorry, you have a, new CD, or relatively new CD out. Your most recent CD is Ricochet.
That's right. It came out last year, 2015.
That came out 2015. All right, and you said you didn't get necessarily have a formal release for that. So you want to plug your album now, or?
Yes, I'd love to plug my album now. We had one of those stretches of time where everybody involved in the project was just going through serious life, tail kicking. All of us had people dying and relationships ending and divorces and other types of breakups and moving 6 times and having just crisis after crisis. It felt like. So that project was constantly being interrupted by life, kicking us out of the studio and having to deal with putting out fires. And that resulted in the album that we started making when we started making Ricochet ended up being very different than the album that we ended up with when we were making Ricochet. So originally the record was being made when my partner and I were she was hit by a car and suffered a brain injury, and we were just going through some serious challenge in
Oh,
life. And so the songs are very deep and emotional and heartfelt, and they're not, you would never know that if you listened to what I just told you, but they're
yeah.
very emotionally hard hitting, and in all different styles, and all about kind of the songs are all always love songs, no matter what you do. I guess it's either love gained, love lost, or love wanted. Kinds of songs what we all write, one way or another. But these songs are really special to me. I think it's some of my best writing that I've ever done came out of extreme, on the floor kind of trauma.
Yeah, well, you hear that a lot though. Like as a musician, it's like when stuff horrible happens, actually as an artist in many ways, when stuff horrible happens, that often inspires something to be
Your
created.
greatest work, yeah. I think human beings in general, whatever our DNA twist or quirk is, that we tend to we're pushed by the more challenging times in our our lives and our trials and struggles to be better or to create more beauty. And so for me, like I think of beauty as kind of like my religion. And so for me, I seek it out everywhere. I seek it out. I see it in people and in the photographs I take, and when I teach and I see people's and hear people's voices come out for the first time, and I get to see their face when they hear their voice without that, that voice in their head telling them they can't sing. Then they, and whether I'm looking at it in an audience and they're getting it, and it's just there's so many everywhere. It's everywhere. I have a song called Little Altars Everywhere. That's really it. It's like every place is an amazing place to find something beautiful, and that aspect of myself has been strengthened by having my butt kicked. And you just get on the floor and you realize, oh, all these walls I've been putting up for years around myself to protect myself, they're not even there anymore. They just and I'm a much more accessible and a warmer and a more true and authentic artist and a better friend and all of that after having all that happen.
Yeah, yeah. It's people don't know how well they can respond and deal with something until they've actually dealt with it. A lot of times when you hear like the story you were telling earlier with your partner getting hit by a car, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, I want to be able to handle that." But when you're in that situation in life, you end up somehow summoning the strength to deal with it.
That's right. Yeah. We are much more than we usually are allowing ourselves to be.
Like for me, for example, like I'm actually blind in my right eye. When I was 27, I went blind from what amounted to basically a stroke of the retinal artery.
Wow.
And yeah, everybody was telling me that, oh man, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how, like I don't think I could handle it. And I was like, well, I looked at it like I have two choices. One, I could curl up in the corner and cry about it, and or two, I can deal with it and move on. And it's like I dealt with it by humor though. So
Right.
I guess what I said, one of my jokes I had in the hospital was, I guess what they say about masturbation is right. Um, thank God I'm not ambidextrous. It's like it's
That's great.
so it's like you summon things, it creates other things inside you, and you just have to deal with it. Yeah, I bump into things from time to time, but you know it's strengthened me in other ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
So that being said, um let's see, you are actually living in two locations now.
Yes.
I'm not much for transitional material. Sometimes I'll just jump to a subject.
Okay, that's all right.
But yeah, so you're living in two locations now, Fairfield, Iowa, and Philadelphia.
Yeah, southeastern Pennsylvania. It's actually Chester County, which is just right, a hair away from Lancaster County, which has a really large Amish community and is kind of known for that. But it's in the country. I'm like in the country, an hour southwest of Philadelphia when I'm out east. And then when I'm in Fairfield, I'm basically in southeastern Iowa and southeastern Pennsylvania. I just go back and forth, feed in two boats that are 970 miles apart.
That's a wide
Yeah, I'm
stance.
tired. I'm pretty tired most of the time. It's a lot of driving. It's, what is that, 1,520 miles round trip or something, 1,550, something like that. It's a lot of miles. And I've done that. I did it October, December, February, March, April. I came out here after going out there in October and returning those two or three times, and then in April I took a job in Iowa to make some money, and I've been here going back there. So I had shows and helping my mom with some things back east, and so I've been just basically doing just a lot of driving.
And yeah, that is a lot of driving. It adds up
Yep.
quickly. But in Philly and the Philadelphia area, are you playing shows too,
Yeah.
or
Yes, I'm actually when I arrived out there in October, I didn't have, I had one contact of another songwriter that I knew 10 years ago when I was there, and I've only really played on the East Coast, even though I was raised there. I was born in Philadelphia, and my family's in that area. I was raised in Delaware, in the Wilmington, Delaware area, but then I left, and I've been gone for decades. And so my whole music career happened away from there. And I would go back every year to visit at Christmas. So I was always there during the holidays when nothing was happening musically. So I never played there. So I've been, I've lived all over the place. I lived in Santa Cruz and Austin and the hill country south of Austin and Vancouver, British Columbia and Santa Cruz. So I just lived all over the country and Hawaii and all over the place. And
Oh,
but I
wow.
never, so I've played in all of those places where I lived. I did music, I taught, or I was, in one case, in the case of Hawaii, I was studying with my teacher, learning more about the singing body. And then we just basically did these music seminars and lived that work 24/7 for, those 8 months that we were there. And so I've had a really varied life of moving around and had a
Yeah,
couple
sounds
kids
like
too. And so it's been busy.
right on. Yeah, so it sounds like you've seen the country at least quite a bit. Uh, when you mentioned when you moved to Philadelphia, you only had one contact. What have you done to gain more connections and be able to get more shows? Because I imagine it's hard to get a show when you only have one contact in the city.
Yes, yeah. Actually, what I did is I did a few things. I just asked around. I looked online and I found where the listening rooms are. And so those are the places that I want to be playing because that's what I've been doing for years. And so it's not really in my best interest to be playing a lot of bars because what I write is more I'm accustomed to people paying a cover and sitting down for a concert. And so I can play a bar, and I do play bars. I played one on Saturday night, but not very often. It's not really conducive to what I do. And so,
Yeah.
what I ideally do, let me put it that way, I'll do a lot of different things other than what I ideally do. But what I want to be doing is playing shows for people who are listening. And um, so to get to that point, I found out where the listening rooms were, and then I talked to this songwriter friend of mine. And normally, if you come into an area and you ask a non-musician, okay, so where are the songwriter rooms? And they're like, oh, there's a open mic down the street. And I'm like, oh, no, no, you don't understand. I've been playing music professionally for 20, 25 years. I'm not going to play the open mic down the street. Um,
Yeah.
necessarily, unless there's a reason to do it. And so I found the places where there was a reason to do that. There were the venues that I wanted to be playing in. And the open mic was a way to lead to the featured artist, which was a way to lead to a gig there and that kind of thing. So I did a few of those and met some people there and got some more recommendations. I did one open mic at a wonderful listening room about 45 minutes from my mom's house. It was a really artistic town called Phoenixville, and that one led to a quick gig and an opening for Sonia of Disappear Fear, which was a good connection because they gave me some more connections. And so it's just really a matter of this is a business of connections, and that's the most important thing. So just making yourself go out there and meet people and shake hands and find ways to open for larger acts, better known acts, and get yourself in the doors that you need to be in. It's a time game, and because I've been doing this for a while, I don't feel like I want to or have the time to spend to do it the slow way. So I was
Yeah.
looking for a quick way. So I called a booking agent and found out that she actually ran a very established and respected songwriter competition in Philadelphia, and it was actually closing the next Tuesday night, right after that call. So I looked it up and submitted some music, and actually was able to get under the wire, and went through 4 different levels of judging, and ended up being in the top 10 for that. So that was a really great help for me in getting my name out there and getting some recognition for my music. So I was top 10 for that competition, and then through that I actually signed with that booking agent, and so now I have a new booking agent back east. That's a new thing.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and so I'm playing some of the music rooms and listening rooms in the area already. It's been about 4 or 5 months, I guess, I've been working in that area. Although, as I said, I've been out here in Iowa just as much, so it's really kind of diverted my attention from really focusing it as much back east. But There are some cool little areas where I've begun teaching the singing body, which is great, and my hope is to be able to do that, to kind of cultivate, whether it's a yoga center or some kind of a place where they do self-improvement classes, and continue to do that and develop that part of my business as well. So that's really this is the three-pronged approach: is performing and putting my music out and selling albums, and then doing the licensing for film and TV, and then teaching. And so those are the
Okay.
three kind of levels of things that I'm focused on with music.
Oh, great. And your singing body seminar, do you take that on the road too, or is it just on location?
I
Or like,
personally would travel. I'll travel to do, any of these things, but in my ideal world is I book any town, any city, anywhere, and put something together. And I'm hoping the booking agent is going to take this whole thing on as a package where I can go into a place, do a private show. For instance, I do a lot of house concerts. I love house concerts. So as a lot of songwriters do that. So you have the private show in a house concert, and you have a public show in a listening room or a theater or wherever that is. And I also do far left center church gigs. So what's called New Thoughts, that's Unity or Unitarian or anything like that. So I do those kinds of
okay.
gigs. So that adds another opportunity for performance and income stream. So on every Sunday of a gig tour, you can have a gig. And so that gets a little rough when the Saturday night is late. The morning starts early, but
Yeah.
other than that, and so basically to be able to teach the singing body, to do a private gig, to do a public gig, to do a church gig, and then go home having done 4 or 5 different things, and you get to have some, you have some jingle in your pockets when you leave.
So the Unitarian Church, like, it's like non-faith based, or is it? Do they like do like the flying spaghetti monster thing,
What's
or
that?
like instead of saying God in some like schools and stuff, they replace the word God with flying spaghetti monster?
Wow, I've never heard of that. No,
Yeah.
although the thing with like Unity is different in that it is uh, considered a Christian church. So it's just
Okay.
far left Christian church. A lot of metaphysics involved in that, understanding of the way the world works from a more metaphysical standpoint. But with Unitarian is very different than that, in that they have some of that, but they're very much social justice focused. They're not really. It's a community, and it is. I don't know if they even call it a faith-based community. It's a lot of. Let's see. I don't know if I should say this on the air.
I won't judge you, but others might.
Yeah. My experience of it is it was less of a faith-based community and more of a social justice and making change in the world, kind of a community.
Okay, I don't think they'd be offended by that explanation.
Yeah, I think it's accurate.
Sounds good. Well, we have a lot going on with you right now. You have the
Yes.
Ricochet CD out right now. That's been out for a little while. Didn't get its proper
Release.
proper release. You're living in 2 locations. You have the licensing business for music and films and TV, and on top of being the musician, singer, songwriter, and then your third point of the trident would be the singing body seminar. What advice do you have for upcoming musicians? I'm sure you have quite a bit since you teach a seminar like this.
Yeah, it's I personally I feel like I stretch myself pretty thin, and I it's know that the music business is called the music business because there really is a significant business aspect to it if you want to
Yeah.
continue to do it and be successful. So there's a lot of time is spent wearing 15 different hats. So what I would say is if you can create teams, it's really powerful to have. Not try to do it yourself. Don't emulate me. I am tired. it's really great to work with people who when you can put a team together. Like I'm so excited to have a booking agent, and I'm new out there, so it's just me. But now it's me and the booking agent. I'm like, okay, now putting a team together, and that's awesome. And next it'll be somebody to do duo shows with me, so I have some musical support on stage, and then it'll just slowly
Okay.
build. But it's really good to have more than just you, so that you both have a different perspective on the business, and also that you can delegate some of the work, because really just doing one piece of this puzzle is a full-time job. And so I have all these pieces, and I constantly feel like in my position, without having created or I'm in the process of creating a team. I feel like everything is on my shoulders. It can feel a bit overwhelming, and so my biggest recommendation would be to create a team where that you really work well with, that you have the same goals, and that you can go for your dreams, in tandem.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And having that network can also lead to more connections with other people as well, correct? Like, is that kind of what you're using it for, along with people like helping out doing their share of the workload?
Yes, absolutely. The more people that you have involved, the more people who will know about what you're doing and will be able to support you in turn.
Great. And I do ask another question of all of my guests here on Uncontained. Basically, it goes along with the title of the show. It's how do you live uncontained?
Mm. Well, I've been an artist my whole life, and I have been very blessed to be able to continue to do that. So I have just, been who I am and done what I do. Even though I've raised a family, and I've, had partnerships, and I've, gone through life. It's been a very full life, and I feel like, um, as an out lesbian, with a family, and with this arts business, I am always out there being myself for a living. That's the song actually that got me into that contest. It's called Myself for a Living. I recommend people go and listen, especially if they're artists, because it's what we're here to do, is to be as much of who we are here as we can be. And so that's
Okay.
uncontained. Let her rip. Bring, because we all have our very unique gifts that we bring. And so if you're putting a lid on your light, then you're not serving anybody, yourself in the least part. So it's just yeah, I am myself for a living, full on, with all the music and all the businesses that I do. They're all in support of giving me the freedom and the flexibility to be able to be an artist, to be able to be going to the store and say, "Oh my God, that's sunset," and follow the sunset and get past the trees so I can see the country road that I can go down, and then take some amazing pictures that I can then, what it posts is as a way for me. By the way, here's these beautiful pictures in this amazing town that I live in, and there's a show there this Friday night at Paradiso at 8 o'clock, and you can just tie everything together to make your artist life work.
Great. Took me on a journey
Did I
there.
answer your question though?
I think so. Yes, yes. To kind of live your life uncontained by letting yourself out, because I think I heard I don't remember what comedian said this, but it was nobody can do you like you.
Absolutely, perfectly, a perfect synopsis of what I just said.
Okay, see,
Yes,
I listen. I listen.
yes, absolutely.
All right. We're getting ready to wrap things up here. What is your contact information?
My website is SharonBousquet.com. It's SHARON, B as in boy, OUS as in Sam, QUET.com. It's like a bouquet with an S in the middle. SharonBousquet.com. And then if you just put that in, you'll find all the other links to everything else that you would need. The Singing Body has a page there. The other thing is Facebook. You can look me up on Facebook. I have an artist page and a personal page, and I'd be happy
All
to
right, great.
have some more friends.
And can you get Ricochet on iTunes, or can you purchase that
You sure
somewhere?
can. iTunes, Amazon, CD Baby, all over the place.
Great. Make sure you check her out. I'll put those in the show notes, so people can find those easily. And I like to have my guests sign off the show, Sharon.
Okay.
It's been great talking to you, and it's been really enjoyable. So, will you do me the favor of signing off the show for me?
Happy to do that. I am Sharon Bousquet, and I live uncontained.
Thanks again to Sharon for coming on the show today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Maybe you'll go check out her seminar to learn how to balance the hemispheres of your brain and unlock the singer in you. It'd be interesting to check that out. If she comes out to the Bay Area or I get back to Fairfield, Iowa, I may have to have her balance my brain. People have been telling me I'm out of whack for a while. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show. Please share the show with your friends, even if they are just digital friends. They can listen to the show as well. I appreciate that. Because it helps grow notoriety for the show and also exposure for the guests that come on the show. So please rate, review, and share the show with your friends on iTunes or the pod player of your choice. I'm going to leave you with one more track from Sharon Bousquet tonight. It's off of her 2006 release, Temple. It's a track she talked about during the show when she's telling us how she lives uncontained. It's Myself for a Living. And as always, until next time, live uncontained.
It's not I want the big house. It's not I need a new car. It's more that I've been poured into a small clay jar. It's more a push inside. It's like the voice of God telling me to make the best of what I'm given. Be myself for a living. I have a heart-wrecked home. The one I love is sailing, happy on a sea of my tears in a boat of my failings. It's like a push inside. It's like the voice of God telling me to make the best of what I'm given. Be myself for a living. Be myself for a living. You might think it's fame that calls, but it's really not the point at all. This is who I am. It's my wedding band. It's my wedding. I recall a vow once spoken long before I was a girl. Something like a mission, gifts we carry for this world. To take that push inside as the voice of God telling you to make the best of what you're given. Be yourself for a living. Be yourself